we saw that the Galilean transformations must be replaced by new transformations that are consistent with the experiments that we covered, including the Michelson-Morley experiment. So the new transformation equations are going to be derived using the theory of special relativity. So if we observe an event in one inertial frame F, we specify the coordinates x, y, z to characterize its location, and t characterizes the time at which it occurs. And in the primed inertial frame, we specify the coordinates x prime, y prime, and z prime to specify its location, and t prime being the time at which it occurs in the primed frame. So therefore we have the following functional relationships, where we essentially want the transformation equations that relate one observer's space-time coordinates with the other observer's space-time coordinates of the same event. So to derive the transformation equations, we can simplify the algebra considerably by choosing the relative velocity to be along a common axis being x and x prime. And we don't include rotation, so essentially all the planes remain parallel before and after the transformation. Now at the instant that the origins in these two frames coincide, then we let the clocks read t equals 0 in the unprimed frame and t prime equals 0 in the primed frame. Now the transformation equations that we come up with must be linear, so this is the most general form that they can take. And we can write this transformation equation in matrix form as follows, where we have the space-time coordinates in the unprimed frame and the primed frame being the following vectors, and the transformation matrix of coefficients is A. So essentially, the subscripted coefficients are constants which we must determine to obtain the transformation equations. And note that the space and time coordinates can depend on one another. So the location can depend on time, and the time can depend on the location of the event. So the requirement that the equations be linear is due to the homogeneity assumption. So essentially, if we have a transformation of a vector from the unprimed to the primed frame, then the homogeneity assumption states that transforming a scalar multiplied by a vector in V is equivalent to multiplying the scalar by the transformation of that vector. So this is true for all real scalars and all vectors in V. So essentially, we're preserving scalar multiplication while mapping a zero vector to a zero vector. So the transformation essentially maintains the origin. So physically, this ensures the properties of space-time are identical everywhere. So for example, the measured length of a rod, which is obtained by measuring the distance between two events, should not depend on the location of that rod in space. So no matter where the rod is located, we should get the same length. And similarly, time intervals don't depend on the locations of the hands of the clock. So essentially these two are the same time intervals. So that's ensured by our homogeneity assumption. Now to find the 16 coefficients, we expect them to depend on a relative velocity between the two frames. So essentially, if v equals 0, then the two frames always coincide, and we thereby expect the coefficients on the diagonal to be all 1, and all the other coefficients to be 0. So in this special case, we get x prime equals x, y prime equals y, z prime equals z, and t prime equals t. Now in the general case, where the relative velocity is non-zero, we can find the 16 coefficients by applying the postulates of special relativity. So remember the relativity postulate that states no preferred inertial frame exists, so the laws of physics are the same in all inertial systems, and the second postulate is the constancy of the speed of light, meaning the speed of light in a vacuum is the same in all inertial systems. And in addition, we can apply some geometric arguments to get rid of some of these coefficients. So firstly, given we're only considering a relative velocity along the x-axis, so the x and x primed axes always coincide, so therefore any point on the x-axis, so y equals 0 and z equals 0, should map to a point on the x primed axis. where y prime is 0 and z prime equals 0. So to ensure this condition is satisfied for any value of x and t, then these four coefficients must be 0. So as we can see, when y equals 0 and z equals 0, y prime is 0 and z prime is also 0. Now similarly, the xy plane, which is characterized by z equals 0, must transform to the x prime y prime frame, which is represented by z prime is equal to 0. And similarly, the xz plane, which is characterized by y equals 0, should transform to the x prime z prime frame, characterized by y prime is equal to 0. So before and after the transformation, the planes should not be rotated. So this condition makes the following coefficients 0. So therefore y prime is equal to a scalar multiplied by y, and z prime is a scalar multiplied by z. Now to obtain these two coefficients, we can use the relativity postulate. So for example, considering this coefficient being a subscript 2, 2, suppose we have a rod measured by an observer in frame F to be of unit length and the rod's parallel to the y-axis. And we illustrate this for the coefficient a subscript 2, 2. So if we have a rod that's parallel to the y-axis, and this rod has a unit length that's measured by an observer in this frame. So according to an observer in the f-primed frame, the length of the rod will be a subscript 2, 2, according to this equation. But if this same rod is brought to rest along the y-primed axis of the f-primed frame, so essentially when the rod is at rest, as seen by the primed observer, he should measure the same length. So by this argument, a subscript 2, 2 must be equal to 1. So therefore our new transformation equation for y prime is the same. And by a similar argument, if we consider a rod that's parallel to the z-axis, we'd get a subscript 3, 3 to be equal to 1, and therefore the transformation equation for z does not change either. So therefore we're left with two transformation equations for the x-coordinate and time. Now if we first look at the t prime equation, we know that clocks that are placed symmetrically in the yz plane, so for example, at a position of plus y and at a position of minus y, should agree according to an observer in the primed frame. So this property is the isotropy of space, where space has the same properties in all directions. And likewise, a clock placed in the yz plane at a location of plus z must agree with a clock placed at a location of minus z. So by symmetry, t prime should not depend on y and z. So these coefficients must be 0. Now for the x prime equation, we know that a point with a location x prime is equal to 0 appears to be moving in a direction of the positive x-axis with speed v according to an observer in the unprimed frame. So this statement must be identical to x equals v by t. And note that x prime does not depend on y or z because we only have a velocity in the x direction. So let's get rid of this. So what we have is x prime is equal to a11 by x plus a14 by t. So given this condition, where x prime is 0 is equivalent to x is equal to vt, we can write this as a11 by x minus vt. So essentially x is equal to vt always gives x prime is equal to 0. So what we have here is a11 is equal to a11, and therefore a14 is minus v by a11. So what we've done is reduce our transformation equations to x prime is equal to a constant by the Galilean transformation, y prime is equal to y, z prime is equal to z, and t prime is equal to a41 by x plus a44 by t. So what we have is three unknown coefficients which we need to determine. And to do that, we use the second postulate of the constancy of the speed of light. So starting from a time of t equals 0, we have a spherical light wave that leaves the origin of the unprimed frame, and at time equals t equals 0, the origin of f prime corresponds with the origin of f. So this wave propagates at the speed of light, being c, in all directions. Let's make some room here. So we can describe the progression of this light wave using the equation of a sphere. So in the unprimed frame, we have x squared plus y squared plus z squared is equal to the square of the radius of the sphere, which is the speed of light by time t squared. So we get c squared by t squared. And similarly in the primed frame, we have x prime squared plus y prime squared plus z prime squared is equal to the constant speed of light squared by t prime squared. And now we can make our substitutions for x prime, y prime, z prime and t prime into this equation. So what we get is a11 squared by x minus vt squared plus y squared plus z squared is equal to c squared by a41x plus a44t all squared. And then doing some algebra, we can write this equation in the following form. So we have the coefficient of x squared is a11 squared minus c squared by a41 squared plus y squared plus z squared, and the remaining terms are minus 2 by v by a11 squared plus c squared by a41 by a44, and that's multiplied by xt, and that's equal to the coefficient of t squared by t squared. So we get c squared by a44 squared minus v squared by a11 squared by t squared. So I'll let you do the algebra on your own. And then we equate coefficients with this equation. So equating coefficients of t squared, we get c squared by a44 squared minus v squared by a11 squared is equal to c squared. And then equating coefficients of x squared, we get a11 squared minus c squared by a41 squared is equal to 1. And then equating coefficients of xt, we get this expression is equal to 0. So we have v by a11 squared plus c squared by a41 a44 is equal to 0. So what we have are three equations for three unknown coefficients. And if you solve these equations, we get a44 is the reciprocal of the square root of 1 minus v squared on c squared. Now let's get rid of this equation. And we get the same expression for a11, and a41 is equal to minus v on c squared on the square root of 1 minus v squared on c squared. So we've seen this term in the denominator when we covered the Michelson-Morley experiment. So if we substitute these values in our transformation equations, we get the following results. So we get x prime is equal to x minus vt on the square root of 1 minus v squared on c squared, and y prime remains equal to y, and z prime is equal to z, and t prime is equal to t minus v on c squared by x over the square root of 1 minus v squared on c squared. So these equations are called the Lorentz Transformation Equations. Now before we look at the physical meaning of these equations, we can test them out. So essentially we consider the given spacetime coordinates of the event to be those observed in the f-primed frame rather than the unprimed frame. Then by the relativity principle, we can only exchange the relative velocity from v to minus v. So according to an observer in a primed frame, the unprimed frame would appear to be moving to the left. So recall that equivalently, according to an observer in the unprimed frame, the primed frame appeared to be moving to the right. So therefore when we solve these transformation equations, what we get is x is equal to x prime plus v multiplied by t prime over the square root of 1 minus v squared on c squared. So essentially, we swapped x with x prime and v with minus v. And similarly we have y is equal to y prime and exchange z prime with z. And then exchanging t prime with t and v with minus v, we get t is equal to t prime plus v on c squared by x prime on the square root of 1 minus v squared on c squared. So these are identical in form to the primed equations, except that the sign of the relative velocity is changed from positive to negative. Now the other test for these equations is for speeds that are much smaller than the speed of light. So the ratio of the relative velocity to the speed of light is much less than 1. So as we can see, this term approaches 0, this term approaches 0, and this term approaches 0. So therefore the Lorentz transformation equations reduce to the Galilean transformation equations for relative speeds that are much smaller than the speed of light.